We're here this evening at the transformed State Farm Arena. I'm here with Chris Holdsworth with the Atlanta Hawks. Chris, brand new arena, feels brand new. How did we get started?
When you ask how we got started, we had some architectural constraints that needed to be addressed. There were a lot of obstacles that were in the previous design. It had this very unique suite wall. It was just a wall of suites, and it created a little bit of a disconnect in the fan experience. As we know from some of the latest principles and tenets of sports facility architecture, accessibility and being able to move freely about concourses, it's a very important part of the experience. So in our renovation efforts, a fun fact is that we actually took out 3 million pounds of concrete. That allowed us to bring in some natural light, but then it also allowed us to address some of these impasses that we talked about, take out these walls that were preventing people from freely walking around the concourses.
There was a lot of talk in there about fan experience.
It's definitely about fans. This is fan-centric. We keep a very close tab on making sure that we're constantly hearing the voice of the fan. Fan surveys are very important to us, and not just collecting that data and sitting on it. We all comb through that survey data and we figure out how to turn it into actionable steps. We don't want to be relevant just for the 2018-2019 season. This was an investment, and you need to protect your investment. You need to make sure that you maintain the relevancy of that investment, especially in the field that we're in with sports and entertainment.
If you're a fan that had spent any time in Phillips Arena, now coming into the new State Farm Arena, dramatically different approach towards sponsorship.
We wanted to make sure that we approached sponsorship in a very different way. It needed to be managed. It's not something that was just reactive. It needed to be very proactive. And that's a very thoughtful process. That doesn't just happen organically. It's not just putting a brand up. It's not just putting a logo up. We have an amazing building here with some amazing, just in its food and beverage and architectural features. It's an amazing fan experience. So the last thing we want to do is lose an opportunity to extend that same stellar fan experience into the sponsorship zones.
What advice would you give for somebody in your shoes or team ownership as they think about taking on a big renovation like that?
The first thing is make sure as an organization you know what you stand for. Make sure that you know what your end result is. What is your goal? What metric are you looking at that tells you if you're succeeding or not, if you're actually reaching your organizational goals. So by all means, before you start spending money, I think it's very critical to do some soul searching as an organization and figure out what you're trying to achieve. The way to do that is go out and talk to people that have done it and get their input and figure out what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and help build your own knowledge base so that you can be very confident with what you stand for as an organization, and make sure that at the end of the day you know what your goal is. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have sort of a North Star, it's going to be very difficult to make decisions along the way. The other thing to me that's important, as an organization you should really know where your weaknesses are. It's great to know what your strengths are, and it's great to pursue those and foster those. It's very important to know what you can't do, and then be able to look to a very trusted pool of partners that can help fill those gaps.